Welcome back to the Pushing Through Loss podcast, where we share stories, honor resilience, and embrace strength. I am Kalila Green Siciliano, and it is my honor to begin the journey with you. Today I have with me Larissa, who I just met, and I'm thrilled to have you on because I feel like not only do you have a personal story, which is always tragic and awful, and like I just feel for you so much, but at the same time, you've taken that and you've turned it into something beautiful and being able to help so many other women going through pregnancy loss. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. And I guess let's start at the beginning. We just sort of went over a little bit about your background. Tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, about the pregnancy that you did lose.
Yeah. So in 2014, um, brand new, just married, excited on our honeymoon, kind of get pregnant. First child, right? So we're looking forward to everything. And things went okay at first. And then eventually we kept getting some like bad news. Like I had some bad testing and my blood pressure was high. And then I had some more bad testing. So I ended up having what's called preeclampsia. And so preeclampsia is something that affects like up to 8% of pregnancies. Usually leads to early delivery. In my case, it led to a very, very early delivery. And it's kind of symptoms include like high blood pressure, changes in vision, things like that. So around the 5-month mark, I had noticed my blood pressure was like creeping up and creeping up. And so I was sharing that information with my doctor. Eventually it got really high. I was admitted to the hospital and I was at this like border point of technically you can't be diagnosed with preeclampsia until 20 weeks of pregnancy. But I was 19 weeks. And so there was like this confusion of like, is it preeclampsia? Is it not preeclampsia? So they were like doing all kinds of testing and everything. And eventually it came to you're 20 weeks, you're still having these symptoms, you have preeclampsia.
I mean, at that
Yeah.
point, you're sort of like, yes, I know, I've been telling you this.
Yes, exactly. So at that point, I had been in the hospital for like a few days. So we kind of came up with a plan of like, let's just try to keep you in the hospital as long as possible, try to keep you stable, and see where things go, viability. And so that will try to do any interventions to help. So at 20 weeks, after like 5 days in the hospital, I started to get like this cough, and then they did an x-ray and it showed I had pulmonary embolism, which is fluid in my lungs. And so that was like one of the criteria for having to deliver pretty much immediately. So it was like my blood pressure continued to be unstable, my platelets had dropped, fluid in my lungs. Those were all signs and symptoms of the preeclampsia. And so at that point, the doctors kind of came to me and were like, you're not going to survive another 4 weeks to make it. And so, we really recommend and encourage you to have to like make this really, really difficult choice. And so I had to choose to be induced, knowing that they weren't going to do anything to try to save my daughter, but knowing that if I didn't, I also wasn't going to live either. So it was like a really awful
And there's
situation.
also that chance that even if you do make it to 24 weeks, that maybe she won't survive.
Yeah. And at that point, honestly, my body was like not going to last much longer. And so it was like, if you don't agree to do this, like we're going to have to take you to like the medical boards to kind of overrule your decision even. So it was a very, very difficult situation. So I eventually, on September 7th, 2014, gave birth to my daughter. She was stillborn. And I had some more complications from preeclampsia after that. So yeah, that's kind of my loss story.
Wow,
My
I'm
first,
so sorry.
Thank you. My first daughter, her name was Charlotte. So
That's beautiful. And were you able to then have a plot for her and you can still kind of go back and visit and do
so
something on her birthday every year?
Yeah, we do more so like the memorial aspect of it. So every year, and that's kind of like the pushing through the loss aspect of it too, is every year I do a different fundraiser. So the first year, I don't remember what I did the first year, but like every year is a different fundraiser. So this most recent year was book bags for kids and like needy kids, right? I don't remember if they were foster care or just kind of like kids in need in the community. But this organization, I worked with them. So I donated backpacks. And this, my friends, my family, my people in the community, they donate money, they donate backpacks. And then I like on her birthday, on Charlotte's birthday, I go and I drop them off. So we've done fundraisers for like domestic violence organizations before where we donate books and teddy bears. We've done another one. Oh, we did a birthday bag. That one was the one that was for foster kids. We did a birthday bag fundraiser one year. And so it was like get a dollar store bag, like a gift bag from the dollar store, and fill it with like cake mix and icing and candles. So that way, like the foster parents don't have to go out and buy that stuff when they're probably already on a limited budget anyway. And so we donated, I think it was like 100 and something birthday bags. They were like overwhelmed. They had to like share them with like other locations
That's
too. So
awesome.
we kind of focus. Yeah, it is. I love doing that every year. And every year I try to pick like what's meaningful to me that year. Like one year when my daughter would have been entering kindergarten, that's a year I did like a school supply drive, right? So I try to focus it on what feels right that year, what kind of it keeps coming up, what keeps popping up for me, and
Mhm.
do that. So we kind of do that more so for the memorial. We don't have like a plot or anything like that. We kind of just focus on like celebrating her life by remembering her, by making sure that we do something special in her honor.
That's awesome. And I love that you have taken it into this sort of metaphysical world to say that she's still here, she's still a part of us, she's
Mhm.
a part of our family, and we're going to honor her every year. I think
Yeah.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And since then, I know you've had at least one other child.
Two. Yep. I have two. Yep.
That's incredible. So then were those
Mhm.
pregnancies similar, or was it something that the doctors, because you were already high risk, they sort of kept an eye on you from the very beginning?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I was like super high risk. They did all kinds of testing, ruled out everything. Like there was no known reason that I would get preeclampsia, like no underlying conditions or anything like that. Another thing that they focused a lot on was that my case was so early and so severe. That's very atypical. Most people won't get preeclampsia until after 20 weeks, and most people not until like 35, 37, 38 weeks. So my situation was so unique. They really still have not figured out like why my situation happened. So because of that, they were like, we don't know, so we can't really do anything really. So we just have to keep a really, really close eye on you. So the only thing that they've kind of shown some positives in research is baby aspirin. And so some people, it's recommended that they take baby aspirin in their subsequent pregnancies. It's thought to impact like the placenta, something to do with the placenta, and how it implants and things like that. Yeah.
That's so interesting
So
because in IVF, they actually also put baby aspirin
mhm,
into um,
yeah.
your medication protocol.
Yeah. Yep. And so it's all because people with that do IVF are also elevated risk for
Mm,
preeclampsia. So yeah. So for my second pregnancy, I did take baby aspirin from like the moment that I got a positive pregnancy test. And that's my son. And so I made it all the way to 39 weeks with no symptoms of preeclampsia at all. My blood pressure was
wow.
great. Everything was good. We did a voluntary induction at 39 weeks because I was anxious and a mess. And my doctors were like, we don't even want to take any chances that anything could happen.
Right.
So he was born at 39 weeks. Great. He was healthy. I was healthy. That was really good. Um, 8 now, so he's a big guy. He's a big guy now.
That's awesome.
And then my next daughter, thanks. And then my next daughter, so for her, my situation was a little different. So they wanted me on the baby aspirin right away again, and I did start taking it. Unfortunately, I had an SCH, this subchronic hematoma thing where you start bleeding. And so I had to stop taking the baby aspirin from about like 6 weeks or so until like 13 weeks when it cleared up. So I wasn't on it for the kind of that like pivotal time. Like they usually say to start it by like week 15. So I missed a bunch of weeks. So with her, around 35 weeks or so, I started to show some signs of preeclampsia, of like gestational hypertension. Like my blood pressure was creeping up, my urine, protein urine, urine kind of were elevated, and just some other like blood work and stuff was kind of coming back a little bit wonky. So we had a 39-week induction scheduled, and we decided let's do 37 weeks. Like let's get her out and safe, and like make sure everything goes smoothly and this doesn't turn into preeclampsia. So I
Right.
was like, yes, 100% on board with that. Like I'd rather her be here and safe and know that everything is good and not have my body kind of get wrecked again,
Right.
basically. So
Right. It sounds like you had
yeah.
an incredible team of doctors to really listen to what you were going through and also to understand what your symptoms were and say, okay, we know your history, we know what you've gone through, we're not taking any chances. Because a lot of
Yeah.
doctors would be like, okay, well, we can always wait and see. And
Yeah.
they really were proactive in your care, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I credit them so much. Like they were so helpful throughout the entire process. I'm really lucky to have them.
Hmm.
They had some downfalls, but it definitely were like on top of it of wanting, especially with my second pregnancy, like my OB was just constantly like, we just want you to have a healthy baby. We want you to take home a baby this time. Like they were invested in it with me because for
Right,
them it was such a big experience because my case was so unique and so different that I
right,
stood out to all of them as like this is like the worst case scenario for all of them of like we don't even know what this is.
right,
So a couple of days later, okay, it's really, really bad preeclampsia and having to deliver. So they
right.
all were like, we just want you to have a healthy baby. We want you guys to have a positive outcome this
That's
time. And so
amazing.
that was really reassuring to know like they are fighting everything for me too. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So while you were going through each of these pregnancies, I know you said that before we recorded, you said that you have a therapy practice. And once you lost your daughter,
Mhm.
it took you a little while to sort of transition into working with pregnancy lost parents and stillbirth. And go into sort of how that happened because obviously there's not that many years between when you lost your daughter and then having two live children, but I know that it was a process to get to being able to work with other moms.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So the interesting thing is that when I was pregnant, I did have a client that was assigned to me that had recently lost a baby. And so I was like, I'm pregnant. I have never dealt with this before. Really hadn't really had much experience with grief like close to me. So I felt really out of my wheelhouse kind of working with her. And then I ended up out on leave. And so I'm not really even sure honestly what happened to that client. But so that was like an interesting perspective for me of like, I had that client and I had no idea what to do with her. And then I had this situation happen to me. And I don't want to feel powerless like that in my own life and in my career too. So I really took some time to heal myself first, or when I lost my daughter, when I lost Charlotte, I felt so like betrayed by my body. I didn't feel connected to my body. I felt angry at my body, right? Because it was my body ultimately that shut down on me and wouldn't allow me to stay pregnant with her. She was
Right,
healthy. I was not.
right.
So I felt so much anger. And so I did a lot of yoga to kind of help me heal. I'd always done yoga for a long, long time. But I did a lot of yoga to kind of help me find some healing and find some connection to my body again. And so that was just kind of a part of my process of healing. And then I would say, I continued to work with like a lot of teenagers, and actually at some point during that time, like 2016 or so, I had switched from a general outpatient practice that I was working at to a role in a school working with teens. And so then when I switched to that position, like very heavy with the teenagers and not so much with the parents. And I was like, I kind of liked working with the adults. And I really think that there's so much value in my story as a professional that other people are called to. In this like lost community, we always talk about like it's great when we have people that understand. But it's even better when we have someone who gets it, someone who's
Right.
been there, right? So we have this like whole community of people, like the club that you never wanted to join, but you're so grateful that you found.
Yep.
And so that I found so much healing in that too. I found some random strangers that I met online and part of like a baby center support group, and we started meeting in person because we lived close. And we created like a Facebook group for the few of us that would chat all the time, and they were so essential in my healing. And so then it was just like I have the power, one, because I have the tools as a therapist, and two, because I see the power of community. I see that it helps so much to have these other women who I can just be like, this sucks, and they get it. Or I'm pregnant and I'm freaking terrified, right? Like they just get it so much more than anybody else would. And so I think that's kind of when my mindset started to shift of like this community of being a part of it. I can do so much to help other people. Um, Also, I didn't seek therapy after I lost my daughter. And that was more so because I felt like I am a therapist. Like I know everything the therapist is going to tell me. I know that grieving is normal. I know it's okay to be angry. I know it's okay to be sad. I know it's okay to be crying for a while. Like I just felt like therapy wasn't what I needed. Again, kind of going back to, I think we talked about this offline of like the somatic work of just knowing that my body needed to heal from this experience.
Mm-hmm.
My mind, yeah, but my mind would do it. My mind was capable of doing it, but my body needed to heal. And so that's where I kind of started to shift a little bit of like looking into more CEUs, like continuing education credits that I could take to learn more about working with women who have loss, and kind of just started picking up just randomly finding some clients that found my story online or nurses that I worked with when I was grieving started referring people to me. And so I kind of naturally started taking on some of these clients that had pregnancy loss or birth trauma. And then last September 2023, yeah, no, 2022, one of those years. I went to the perinatal mental health certificate training. And so it's like a 3-day training where you get a little more of a deep dive into postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. And then you can actually take a test and be certified as a perinatal mental health certified person. So that was kind of my journey from working with teens to kind of like my own situation and how kind of brought me to this place right now.
I love that you created something so beautiful from that because it really is like you never want to look at it and say everything happens for a reason because we don't know what that reason is. We don't know why Charlotte's not here or why any of the other babies that are gone are not here. But at the same time, if you can make meaning out of it and you can make something in her honor and in her memory to then carry through and help others, I feel like it creates that unassociated meaning and gives her, even though her life was very short, gives her life that purpose.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so so important to me. Like I didn't mention this part yet, but like I run the New Jersey Promise Walk for preeclampsia, and so that's something that 2014 when this happened, I was like, what the heck is preeclampsia? And it was just completely blindsided me. And so I just like researched, I found the Preeclampsia Foundation and got involved with it and started volunteering and raising money and educating people, and eventually became a role that I stepped into where I kind of like took on as being like the leader. And so that every year is so meaningful to me of just like being able to stand up there and be like a brief, like this is Charlotte's story. We're all here for a very similar reason, and we can all support each other, right? So it's
Hmm.
so meaningful to me to be able to have that, to give back, to kind of share her story. Like that's
Totally.
that's my role as like her mom is kind of what I look like. Like my role, as my son's mom is to cheer him on at his karate tournaments and, to teach my daughter how to, walk and talk and everything else. But my job as Charlotte's mom is just to make sure everyone knows her story, make sure that people know the signs and symptoms of preeclampsia, making sure that other people that experience pregnancy loss and birth trauma know that there's a community out there for them so that they can reach out and they can get the support that they need. And that's how I honor her and remember her every single day.
Yeah. And I think the community part is, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. When I lost the surrogate baby at 16 weeks and 5 days, I was like, first of all, I'm the surrogate. No one's even going to consider me somebody who's supposed to be grieving because it wasn't my child. But I felt the same way that you felt. It was my body that failed. I had had 4 perfect pregnancies, 3 of my own, and then 1 surrogate baby. And all of a sudden, I lost a baby at 4 months and 5 days, which
Mm-hmm.
made no sense. And I found a community here in Florida. They call it HEAL, HEAL. And the head therapist also was a survivor of pregnancy loss. His wife ended up having a stillbirth at like 30, I want to say it was 32 weeks or 37 weeks. I can't remember, but it was very late in the pregnancy. And because he knew exactly where each of us were coming from, it was one of those that it was 12 couples and then me and then the therapist, and they had a nurse from the hospital just as an observer to make sure that everybody was taken care of, or if somebody needed something extra, she was there. And to know that everybody was in a similar situation, like you said, we could rely on each other, we could talk to each other. When each of those women have now gotten pregnant, we have a text group chat that everybody's either
Yes.
saying like, guess what, I'm so excited, or oh my gosh, I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do, or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. Anybody have a doctor I can go to that serves with specialty high risk pregnancies, things like that.
Yeah.
And to know that you've created that community on your own, everybody needs that. Everybody, I mean, all 50 states should have multiple of these. And I feel like this just doesn't exist.
Yeah, yeah, it's so hard. I mean, as a therapist, right, I know that resources are out there, but they can be hard to find even for me. And so I know that someone else that just kind of goes through this, it's like, do the nurses give them the support group information, or is the OB going to give it to them, or are they going to reach out and try to like figure out how to navigate this whole system? Yeah, like there
Right.
needs to be more because that community is everything. The
Right.
community it makes you feel not so alone at a time
Right.
where it feels really, really lonely.
Right. Because you think, first of all, nobody even talks about miscarriage. Most people,
Yeah.
either they don't want to share it or it's something that it's before that first trimester. And so they feel like they
Yeah.
shouldn't share it with anybody. And then when you have a
Mhm.
pregnancy loss that's after that, you're already showing for the most part. And then
Mhm.
you don't really want to say anything to anybody because it might not be any of
Yeah.
their business. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. I went through, I mean, I think we all go through the exact same thoughts, and it's all part
Mhm.
of the grief where that's, I think, what stays with you the most. And if,
Mhm.
like you said, somatically, if you can release that, I do
Mhm.
also a lot of breath work, and I have
Mhm.
um, a program that actually works with quantum physics, and it's so cool that it really
Mhm.
goes into the energy that you carry with you, and it releases a lot of that negative energy. Um, but where I was going with that was to know that somebody else knows what you've gone through without even having to say anything is one of those things that's just priceless. And
Yeah.
I mean, my listeners know I created this ring, this green ring,
Mhm.
to be able to do just that. That anybody who's wearing a
Mhm.
green ring, you can
Mhm.
automatically look at them and say, I know they've experienced a pregnancy loss or a child loss. And
Mhm.
all I have to
Mhm.
do is just walk up to them and show them that I'm also wearing a green
Mhm.
ring and give them a hug
Yeah.
or give them a
Yeah.
smile. And
Yeah.
to know that you can connect to somebody like that,
Mhm.
it's so prevalent and it's so worthwhile to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. In Pennsylvania, they have an organization called the Sweet Pea Organization, and each year they actually do a like a remembrance ceremony kind of day for mostly to kind of honor the living siblings of the child who passed away.
Oh,
And so it's a really
interesting.
fascinating thing. So they and you say that because that you saying that reminded me because they have green shirts is kind of the color of the shirts. Not
I
this year they're
love that.
but yeah, so last year, one of the years before, they had green shirts. So they make a shirt every year. And so Dutch Wonderland is like a local amusement park. This year it's not at Dutch Wonderland, it's at like a little lake and stuff. But they have a day where you get to go to Dutch Wonderland, you get cheap tickets, which is really, really cool. But you walk around and you see everyone wearing the shirts, and it's like they know, they get it, right? And there's just that connection of like you don't even have to like say anything to them. You just like, you guys are wearing the same shirt and like that person gets it. And it feels
Right.
so good to walk around this giant amusement park and see all of these people who know, who know what it's like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There's something
100%.
powerful in that connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you connect with a passing stranger? In losing someone you love through pregnancy loss, death of a child, a sibling, a spouse, a parent, you have been initiated into a club of which no one wants to be a member. By wearing this ring in the color you choose, you'll be connected to a community of people who have experienced the same loss as you. With this concrete visual, you'll be able to easily identify others who understand what you've been through and can offer the support of the lost community. Come find your ring and your connection. Shop now at KalilaGreenspeaker.com. So now that you work with other moms, from both perspectives, what do you think was the thing that helped you the most? I know you said somatic release really was something that you sort of
Mhm.
gravitated towards. What else, either that something that somebody else did or something that you did or that you can help others with, do you think is
Mhm.
like the best advice you have for somebody else?
Yeah, and maybe I'll go back to kind of talking a little bit more about the yoga, right?
Sure.
So the yoga was so helpful for me. So in New Jersey, we have really great like leave time, and so I had the loss, and my doctors wrote me out for 6 weeks of disability, and I get paid partially from the state. So I was able to take 6 weeks off, which not everyone is as lucky to be able to do that. So I'm so appreciative of that. But I signed up for like a 30-day trial at like a local yoga studio, and I went like every single day. And I just found that connection to my body again. I found like forgiveness for my body. Like this is not what I would have chosen for myself or my life, but eventually like something kind of comes from this. Hopefully, it's kind of like what I'm thinking at the time. I just found so much peace and healing, and I don't even like have words to describe it. And there was like one day during meditation during Shavasana where like I had this vision of my daughter come to me, and it was just so it was I've meditated before, but I've never had anything like that happen to me. And it was like such a special moment. It was just like her wearing this like really ugly, like yellow but purple polka dotted dress, like so random, like nothing I would have ever like picked for her. Um, but she just came to me in like a field, and I was like, I like came out of it and was like crying and just like that was like my release right there. So that was really nice. And so what I did, I've been doing yoga for a long time since I was like 20. So by that point, like 15 years or so. Not now at this point. Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing yoga
A
for a long time.
while.
Yes. And so I always wanted to become a yoga teacher and just never was the right time, never was the right amount of money or anything like that. And then in 2021 or 2022, I'm so confused by years right now, I'm sorry.
I,
Um, I saw an ad for yoga teacher training for therapists, and I was like, "Oh, maybe that is meant to be." And then the universe aligned where I randomly like got a bonus for my job, which we don't really get bonuses as therapists, and I was getting a bonus, and it was like the perfect amount of money to pay for it. It was for therapists, which I thought was really, really important too for me to be able to like bring yoga into therapy. And so I did it, and I did the whole year long program. It took up a lot of time, but I absolutely loved it. And during that time was even so much more healing for me. Like I was, 8-ish, 9 years past my loss at that point. But it just brought me to a place of like really understanding that like my life has brought me to this path. I thought I was on my path, but I wasn't necessarily on my path. And so losing Charlotte is an awful experience that I wish had never happened. But it also brought me onto this path where I've been able to help other people along this path and figure out how do they navigate the worst thing they can possibly face in their life.
right.
And so part of what I did in that yoga teacher training, you had to do a final project at the end, kind of like you're in school. And my project was to create a 5-week workshop called Healing Through the Koshas for pregnancy loss. So in yoga, koshas are like the layers of the body. So like your physical body, your emotional body, your breath body, like your wisdom body, and like the deeper body connected to metaphysical kind of stuff, right? So each week is a different set of yoga poses and like education about like how does grief impact the physical body? Well, it makes us more fatigued, it makes us more run down. You might be crying a lot. How does grief impact the emotional body? Sadness, overwhelm, all those things. How does it impact the breath body? Like grief might make us breathe more shallow. It might make us not be breathing all the way into our bellies. It might, all these different things. And then there are yoga poses that kind of go along with it. And so I like designed this program, and I'm trying to push it out and trying to like find a space for it and find some clients that are interested in it. But like that, me being able to like run that for other people, I think will be so important for me to continue like in my healing process, but also to help other people. So I'm really, really excited about that.
That
And I'm hoping
sounds
that works.
phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
say if you could even get it online, there's so
Yeah.
many people that I would be able to recommend that to in terms of saying, like, this is such a great help for after you've gone through such a horrible experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about that. I need to kind of figure out the logistics of it. But yeah, I thought about that too. Just yeah, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah,
My favorite of the weeks is like the breath body one because we start like on our backs for our poses and like move onto our bellies and then like move to like hands and knees and then like move to standing to kind of symbolize like breath like knocks you on the ground, flat
right.
on your back, takes the wind out of you, all of that. And then slowly through that, 45-hour long yoga practice, you learn to kind of stand back up and face,
Right.
the world again, right? So that's
And
like
I
my
think
favorite.
it goes to, I say this all the time. I cannot change what happened, but I can change my outlook. And that really, like in mind, body, and shape, it really takes that whole idea of saying, okay, there is nothing I can do about the fact that she's not here. There's nothing that I can do about the fact that the baby I carried is not here. But I can then change how I react to it and how it affects me moving forward. I'm never going to lose the love that I had for the child that I lost or for the person that I lost. But at the same time, I can still carry them in exactly like what you've done, where you've gone in every year on her birthday, you give to a foundation and you've done all of this research for preeclampsia and you help raise money for them. And you've been able to take your practice and not only help teenagers, but really go into the depths of helping moms in their grief. I mean, it's exactly what I think is the best form of grief, if that's even possible to say, because there's really nothing you can do about what's back there, and you can only do what's moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. I had early on in my loss, I had watched the talk. I don't even remember like who did the talk or anything, but he talked about like proactive grieving. And I feel like that's a lot of what I've done is just
Mhm.
like, how do I take this and turn this into something that is meaningful, that, you know, her life matters to me, and I don't want anyone to ever forget that she was a person, that she was here, that she belonged here, and she's unfortunately not here. But how do I make sure that everyone remembers her, even strangers, right? Just like I would
Right,
want, you know, my kids to know how awesome my son is at karate.
right.
I want people to know that Charlotte has a fundraiser every year for her birthday, right? Yeah, there's
And it's
just
one of those where it brings meaning to when somebody says like, "Oh, how many kids do you have?" And it's such an innocuous
Mhm.
question. Then you can be like, "Well, I actually have three. However,
Mhm.
one is not
Mhm.
here. And look at this great foundation that we're raising money for this year in her honor and her memory."
Yeah. Yep, exactly, exactly. Because that's such a hard question, you know, as a pregnancy loss person of like, how
Right,
many children do you have? And deciding, do you answer it honestly, or do you just kind of give them the fluff answer
right.
because that's all they want to hear? It's such a difficult question to answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell people how they can find you because I would
Mhm.
love for more people to be able to get access to your
Mhm.
yoga and to your somatic breathing and everything.
Yes, definitely. I have lots of different things. So, Instagram is probably the easiest. That will link everyone up to me. It's Hopeful Horizon Wellness is my Instagram tag. I do have a website, but Instagram will kind of bring you to that. What else? I have YouTube videos under Larissa Nickson, LCSW. Nickson is Nickson. I have different like yoga, a couple yoga practices, some breathing work, some information just about like preeclampsia, information about breathing, you know, stuff like that. Um, and then the last thing I didn't mention, but just kind of mentioning now, so that you can also look for that, is that I did write a children's book too. I wrote a children's book called "I Hold You in My Heart." I think it's either "I Carry You in My Heart" or "Hold You in My Heart." I'm forgetting it.
Okay, we'll look it up.
Yes, it is a children's book on coping with grief, and the end has a parent guide to kind of help walk them through the different coping skills. And so it's written in memory of my daughter Charlotte and my two cousins who also lost babies. So the three main
Wow.
characters are Charlotte, Lyra, and Carter. So each, you know, they're the main characters. And so for Charlotte, love elephants. That was like her symbol to me. And then Lyra is a star, and Carter is a butterfly. So the book is kind of written where they lose their families, and so then they find each other as family and teach each other how to cope, how to
Oh
heal
my God, I'm
from
gonna
missing
cry.
family. Yeah, so that's on Amazon. I'm so excited. My sister did all the drawings for it, so lots of credit to her. I wrote it, and then she drew all the pictures up for me. So that
Wow.
is on Amazon. I Hold You in My Heart. I'm pretty sure is what it's called.
We'll
By
make sure
Larissa
in the show notes it's all
Nickson.
correct.
Yes, yes. But I love that. It was very special to me to kind of like write something. It's again, I love the way that her memory lives on in helping others with coping
Yeah.
with grief, even if it's not through therapy. You know, how can I help the kids that are missing siblings too? So,
And I think it brings such a beautiful point to the fact that, like you said before, this proactive grieving, that everybody grieves in a different way. And I know my therapist used to say when he lost his daughter, he had to do, he had to fix his deck, he had to, paint the house, he had to do always busy, always working. And his wife was like, "What are you doing? All I want to do is
Mhm.
stay in bed and cry, and you're not here. You're out doing 100 other things." And they finally came to this understanding that that's how they each grieved. And
Yeah.
to create something. I had somebody on as one of the first interviews. Her name is Rakefet, and she said that she felt like in her creation that she lost, she created this other beautiful thing. And because you lost this
Mhm.
one side of creating life, you were still able to then give and create something else.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for
Yes.
coming on. Your story, as heartbreaking as it is beautiful. I'm so glad that you have two living children who can also keep Charlotte's memory alive and learn about all of these different aspects of grief to be able to teach others. And just you're doing phenomenal work. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining me today on Pushing Through Loss. I hope this episode has provided support, understanding, and a sense of community. Remember, you are not alone on your journey, and you have the strength to face the challenges that come your way. If you found value in today's conversation, please leave me a review and consider sharing it with others who may benefit. Together, we can help each other heal and activate our inner strength warriors. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations, and until next time, you got this.